It's Backstage Pass with Steve Ryan. And here's your host, Steve Ryan.
Hello?
Hey, Neville.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. How are you, my friend?
I'm very good. Am I loud enough?
Yeah, you sound good. It's so nice to see you. Thank you for giving me some time.
It's my pleasure. My pleasure.
Hey, man, I
Um,
was I was uh I was a club DJ in the late 80s, and so I'm very familiar with your music, but I was getting reacquainted as we started talking about doing this today, and
Great.
just kind of going through your catalog again. And I was thinking about your sound, and obviously the early stuff, like when some people came out and 80s. I think you were probably considered dance club music, maybe new wave, alternative, perhaps, but it had this R&B groove to it that was just different than anybody else, and a lot of that had to do with, I think, as I was listening to it, it's like, man, that bass line is so killer. And so I wanted to talk to you about your influences and where that came
Yeah.
from. I'll bet Bernard and Tony Thompson from Chic had something to do with that, maybe, but we can talk about that if
They
you don't
had a
mind.
massive influence. Hang on, let me just turn you up a bit
Yeah.
because I'm that's much. Well, you know what? You know what? I mean, I've been playing, and writing songs for a while when I got my recording contract, like most artists, it sort of happens overnight over 5 or 6 years or even longer. And then when I went into the studio, it's a whole different kettle of fish being in a proper recording studio, not a demo studio. And I'd recorded my album in London, most of it, but it was not right at all. And so the famous story is that I was struggling and I fired my manager and I wasn't happy with most of the album. And I was really in the doldrums a bit because, solo artists, you've got no one to bounce off. And someone suggested I came to New York and did a remix with Steve Thompson and Michael Barbiero, who were at the beginning of their sort of. Michael had been working for years, but Steve, and it's important you know this bit of the story. So Steve was a club DJ on Long Island, and
Yeah.
and he was very happening, and it was a great time. And he'd just done the talk, It's My Life.
Mm.
And I didn't want to come to America because I was always really a very English artist. But I came, I got off the plane in New York, and I remember it really well. And it changed my life because I suddenly realized there was a world out there that I could bring my very English voice just and very English sort of songs, but with a totally different angle. I mean, I was veering towards what I think Carlos Alma called it R&B rock,
Yeah.
but and I was more rocky, but it's very easy when you're a solo artist to end up being softer.
Mm.
And I was heading in that direction. So anyway, the long and the short of it is I went in the studio we did this mix overnight for a song, and I fell in love with Steve and Michael, and they wanted to produce, but no record company would give them, no major would give them a production.
Mm.
And I was desperate to re-record my album, which was a bit, pushing my luck really. So I came back to England and said, I've got these great producers and they'll do, we can do a couple of tracks, redo a couple of tracks. And they were like, they'd spent hundreds of thousands of pounds on me. I mean, we were, and and I said, haha, but we can get Carlos Alima and Tony Thompson and Bernard Edwards from Chic, who were at the peak of their careers.
Yeah.
Carlos had just done Serious Moonlight, and obviously been with David Bowie for years, and they'd never worked together. And Steve had persuaded Steve and his manager Andy Kitness and Mark Bevan, who I think are AAM now. They're very well, they're the big boys in the business now. But they were all starting out. We were all starting out, and we were all hungry. And I persuaded EMI if I could get them. They said if you can get EMI. I mean, there was a little bit of skullduggery going on, and then I came back. And there was a big skullduggery with the budget as well, because in those days, the communication line was via fax. And
Right.
anyway, the long and the short of it is I got to New York, got in the studio, and Imagination was the first one I did with Carlos Aloma and Bernard Edwards and Tony Thompson,
Mhm.
and it was just one of those magic moments. Now, you ask any artist, Steve, they'll tell you that they happen in your career very, very rarely. If more, if you're lucky, if more than once. But and it was that magic moment. I'd recorded Imagination 4 or 5 times, and it had never worked. But suddenly, because it's a bit of an odd lyric and it's a very simple melody, but it worked. And yeah, it doesn't sound like anything else. I mean, to me, it's not R&B, but it's got an R&B feel.
Yeah.
But to me, it's rock R&B. And by the way, it was all recorded in one afternoon, and the vocals live and everything.
Wow.
So
You
we played it.
Yeah.
I was going to say, if you remember back, we played it in Area the next night. We took a cassette in and put it on the club. It was full, and they carried on dancing, so we knew we had something.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and you say that off the cuff, but it's true, because in a dance club, an empty dance floor tells you all you need to know, and nobody's going to dance to a song that they're not feeling.
No,
And so if
no.
it's a song that they don't know, but they say on the
Yeah.
dance floor,
Yeah.
that's a tell.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that's the lesson I'd learned in London. I was managed. Well, I was not managed, but I was published by the Barrow brothers, who managed Duran Duran.
Yeah.
And they were the only people I had, because I'd fired my manager. And so they said, "Listen, get that. You're really good live, and you write great songs, but you've got no feel for what it's like out there." And it was the 80s. So I started going out every night to clubs on my own, by the way, which is really daunting, especially in London. And I suddenly, it's not something you can make up. You feel it. It's you're a DJ, you feel it. And so and that changed everything as well. It was all about the developing process, which every artist goes through. And I think you start off, you think you know everything in life about everything, don't you?
Yeah.
But you don't.
As you get older, you figure that out.
Yeah. And when you're saying you're a DJ, the thing about some people, which is obviously the one that most people in the States know me for, I guess, if you were certainly at the time, and the Swatch commercial and all that, is some people were supposed to be a joke record. It was never supposed to be a real record. What happened? I've got to tell you the story, because having just been on tour and doing it, and some people, I was sent in to do a B-side for something. And it was with Guy Fletcher and Pete Swear in London. And we were, before I'd met Steve Thompson and come to New York. And it was a Friday night, and I didn't really want to do a remix of B-sides. So I'd taken a couple of bottles of wine in, and we were Friday night in the summer, and we were, we were very jolly. I mean, I don't want to say we weren't drunk, but we were on our way,
Yeah.
And I can't play keyboards at all. Okay, so I write everything on guitar. So I'm sitting there with a piano going da da da. Some people dance cheek to cheek with my one finger, and we recorded it, and we recorded the whole thing. And if you hear the multi-tracks, you can hear the party going on in the background. It's all recorded in about an hour.
Some people dance cheek to cheek. Some people dance like what's so simple then. A kind of playtime. You made it easy then. We had a great time. Try not to talk too fast, like you do when you fall in love. Some people let their passion scream, and some people understand their dream.
Wow.
And it was one of those lucky moments. I had the vocal. I mean, the vocal was. I did the vocal. I had the lyrics, but it was never supposed to be such a light. So, but I love the line. Some people dance cheek to cheek. Some people dance.
Yeah.
And that was something. And I brought that to New York. I mean, that was never supposed to be the big first launching song, whatever. It was me too. It was a joke song, a novelty song. Anyway, I came to New York, and Carlos put some backing vocals on with Robin Clark, and that was it. Really, it was really recorded in a couple of hours in London with us drunk.
Wow. Wow.
And Guy Fletcher obviously then joined Dire Straits that summer, obviously for the last 40 years. And I don't know that it's his proudest keyboard moment, I mean,
Yeah.
so, but no,
Well,
that's the story of some people. It's just, after years of trying to get it right, it takes, an hour.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
I love Some People. We were talking about Tony Thompson and Bernard
Yeah.
Edwards from Chic, and you were talking about R&B rock, but they were also in Power Station. I mean, and that's a rock band.
Yeah, it was about the same time. Well, yeah, I think they were really into that. And, I think everything was moving from that groove to more rock. If you
Yeah.
look at the time, the mid 80s. And I think that happened. I'm sure that happened after Imagination. I was 85.
yeah.
I think, yeah, because I remember Tony going off, and because I did something else with Tony and Bernard. Oh, I did the Pretty in Pink thing in LA, the Pretty in Pink track in LA with Tony and Bernard. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was in 85. Yeah. So Tony to me was always I mean, he moved the drum kit 2 foot across the studio when he did Imagination. I mean, when he hits those drums, those
Yeah.
drums.
Yeah. Powerful.
They
Yeah.
were, and it was like they were connected, Bernard and Tony. They were like one unit,
Yeah.
when they
You know,
played.
talking about Imagination, as I was kind of doing a deep dive, I didn't realize that the controversy of the original video. I didn't know there was a original video that obviously got banned, and MTV wouldn't play it because of the full frontal nudity and all that. You had to know. I guess the question was, because I've watched it now. I watched it last night. It's online.
Yeah.
And man, it's so sexy. It is so sexy.
Thank
And
you. Well,
but MTV was never going to play that. So I
well,
guess
you know what? I was very close to MTV, like anyone with a brain was in those days. If you're English, because that's the only way if you were new music, the only way you were going to break, because the alternative was the record companies. You couldn't tour the whole of to crack America. You got to tour America all the time, right?
Right.
And I was a solo artist, so it's expensive business for me going on the road. Now I was playing all the time, but new music, MTV was an obvious one for all of us. And I was my manager by this stage. Danny worked with MTV, and with regards to promotions and things like that. And first thing I did when I came to New York was I got close to everyone at MTV. Mm-hmm. And funny enough, one of the guys who started MTV has been my dearest friend for 40 years, and is godparent to, I'm godparent to his daughter. But that's beside the point. The point is, beautiful. Isn't it sad about them closing, stopping the music?
I know.
And the funny thing is that all the kids are going, "Oh no, that TV program." They're not talking about the music. They're talking about the TV show.
No.
Okay. But anyway, so all us 80s artists, we love MTV.
Yeah.
But no, but let me just say, because I just want you to hear this, that, but we still launched Imagination, the song, Me, everything at Studio 54 in New York. It was an MTV launch with the original long format video. So they were promoting Me, but not they couldn't actually show the video, but it was an MTV launch.
Gotcha.
So I mean, the video was shot as a long version, and then we had to chop it down for a short version. That's why it's so boring,
Yeah. Man,
there was no footage.
Yeah, but boy, I had never seen that version. I didn't know. I don't know how I missed that.
It
But
played in every club in the world for about until they took all the screens down.
Yeah,
I
man.
mean, that's why. Listen, they weren't going to play me on radio everywhere,
Right.
and I wasn't playing. I mean, I was playing in England, and I did a couple of tours in the States, but The only way I was going to break was in the clubs. So the obvious thing to do, as every club had a dirty great screen, was to do a video they had to
Yeah.
play all night.
Yeah.
And they played mine all night.
Yeah. Well, Duran did it with Girls on Film.
They did, yeah,
Yeah.
they did that, which is, and but I don't think after that, I mean, the record companies weren't happy. I mean, they weren't happy with me. Duran Duran, by that stage, they couldn't complain about. With me, they screamed and shouted until it was playing in every club in the world.
Right.
You know?
Right. Hey, going back to the Some People album, there's I don't think it was a single, but one of my favorite tracks on there is Jerusalem. And I mean, it's just so, I don't know, it's not kind of like the other two tracks, The Imagination and Some People. It's just kind of a little easier, you know what I mean? And you can just kind of lean into it.
We did. I more or less did all of that. I think again that was another one that I think Steve and Michael tied it up in New York, but I did most of that with Guy Fletcher in London and Peachtree, and of course Chester Kamen, who's a great guitarist who worked I mean, he worked with a lot of people, but his thing is Brian Ferry. That was his main, but it was just every night when we'd finished recording, and our original record producer I was told to have, and I was new, so I said, yeah, okay. Had a drug issue. I mean, he was a heroin addict, basically, and he kept on disappearing for 3 weeks. So we'd be sitting in the studio. We were all the same age, and none of us had any idea about making a record, right? So we had a great engineer, and we used to go in there and start making a record. We had no idea what we were doing at all.
Yeah.
What should we do today, guys? Well, I know this drummer, so we'd call him up and he'd come in and we'd start on one of my songs. I mean, it was as simple as that. Well, one of the songs we went to every night, and we were all single, and it was Soho in London, so it was great, and and every night when we'd finished recording whatever we were recording, we'd go back to Jerusalem and add a bit. So Jerusalem, I mean, it sounds pretty sparse now, and the whole idea was, and I came to New York to Steve, and I remember now with having this conversation with Steve Thompson a couple of months ago. The whole idea was the strings had to sound like, when you see those 60s blockbuster movies, not Ben-Hur, but Lawrence of Arabia or something like that.
Yeah.
They've got that big orchestral in the background, and I wanted the strings to wash over everything. And Steve Thompson and Michael said, you can't do that. You can't have strings washing over everything. And I insisted, and we did. And about 2 months ago, Steve actually on Facebook said, you were right about those strings.
Yeah.
No, I like Jerusalem's my favorite to do live as well.
Yeah, I love that track.
Actually, it's my second favorite.
What's your first?
Target Practice.
Yeah.
I end the show with that, and I love that.
Hey, you talked earlier about the soundtrack to Pretty in Pink, and Round Round was on there. I had read that you wrote that. Tell me if this is right. That you wrote that specifically for the film.
Yeah, no, I was. John Hughes apparently liked Imagination. Someone had played Imagination to him, and he really liked it. And he was a real music guy, He was a genius. He was an all-rounder. That. Everyone knows the story of John Hughes. And he liked music a lot. His soundtracks were the best ever, I think. And so for Pretty in Pink, he wanted to beat Breakfast Club And I think he did, actually. I think the Pretty in Pink soundtrack is, well, the Rolling Stone record is one of the best ever, you know. And and most of the songs he took that already existed, but
Right.
obviously there was a gap. And he sent me a script. He rang me up, and I was in the studio, and this guy, and I'm in the studio in London, and a demo studio, and they rang up and said, "Oh, there's a guy called John Hughes on the phone from America." I'm like, "Oh, I had no idea who he was," you know.
Yeah.
"Hello, it's John Hughes," and then I'm like, and then it sort of like dawned on me it was John Hughes, the movie director. And he said, "This is what I want, and I'm sending you the script, the bit of the movie that I want you to do it. You got to write this, you know, this is the scene." And of course, with hindsight, years later, you realize this was one of the great honors. But at the time, it was like, oh no, I've never written to order. I don't know what to do. And it was really hard writing songs.
Hmm.
I'm not that kind of songwriter, you know. I'm not like one of those geezers who sits there and on a songwriting session for 4 hours every day, twice a day. You know what I mean? I can't
Yeah.
do it. So, I had to do it, and that's what happened with Round Round. I went back and I ignored it really for about 10 years, 15 years, until I realized it was more. I quite liked it when I heard it again. Realized it to American audiences, it's part of your culture, you know.
Yeah, that movie is, and so everything on that soundtrack is.
Yeah.
You know, as you know, when I was young and in club DJ, and I eventually got into radio, but when John Hughes put a soundtrack together, you always went to all the tracks, and if there was somebody you didn't know, you knew it was somebody you should know.
Yeah,
Because
yeah, because he was so
he had his
good.
pulse on that music. He
Yeah.
knew it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he really was switched on about the music, and even the later movies where he, you know, all of them, the music, the soundtracks are fantastic. If you go through the repertoire, I did, by the way, a few years back, the repertoire of total John Hughes tracks used by songs by, you can basically, there's about 80 or 90, and they cover American and English music. They cover pretty much the 80s. I mean, they are. They're
Yeah.
stunning choice of songs.
You know, that tune, it seemed a little more guitar driven to me. You know,
Well, you know, I was a rock act. I was a rock R&B act that, you know, the 80s were so stylized, and that's why I had to dye my hair white and call myself a stupid name. I mean, it was, you know, you weren't going to get anywhere if you didn't look
Yeah.
you know, and so my look was very dissimilar to what I was. My live band has always been harder and more edgy than the records were, which can happen to a lot of people when you make a record, because you polish things up too much, you know.
Yeah.
And especially when you're new. And so even now, you know, I've got a great American band. They're New York musicians, and it's a really solid. I mean, you know, it's a real rock band. It's not Anglo sophisticated pop. You know,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's got an edge to it. So yeah, you're right. I think Round Round represented more what I was, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I catch you.
Yeah.
Yeah. On your on the second album, Pete Townsend played on that album, didn't he?
He played on What I See.
Yeah. How did you pull that off?
Well, I mean, I cheated like everyone else does. I was managed by Bill Kerbishley, the Who's manager.
Uh-huh.
So I worked. His daughter worked with me. So I worked on her to get Pete Townsend. I mean, it's pretty obvious how I did it. I mean, I was just like, you know, this would be great for Pete.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, you know, Animal Magic is on that album. It was a big dance hit. on the dance charts, which is kind of surprising because it's kind of more of a mellow tempo groove, you know?
On the album, it is, and then they gave it to John Roby, and who did they give it to? And oh gosh, I follow him on. I'm on Instagram with him all the time. I can't remember his name now. Two of them, and they made it sound very new ordery and what they completely changed it, but it made it a big dance hit. Yeah, it was a big dance hit.
I could use this magic too. I could see your mystery through. Animal, this passion, this magic. It's animal magic. The things you do to me, the way you make me feel. It's animal.
And the album track, I think, was probably needed to be. It was a bit too soft. I think. I don't know. I wasn't happy with the mix.
Yeah.
The vocal.
Well, Let It Be With You. Is
That they took my song off me. That's the Borneo horns and brass and real groove, and they gave it to, at the time, really big in the UK. The EMI in London, where by this stage my people had gone, and I was on Parlophone, but I was with some people who didn't really understand me, and they gave it to a company called Stock Aitken and Waterman,
Oh yeah. Hmm.
who had hundreds of hit records with very nasty pop songs.
Yeah.
And they gave it to them. I had no choice. It was the first time anything had been worked on that was mine, and I couldn't go to the studio. And it was sent in, came back the next day, done, and this is it. And
Don't know what I have to say. I don't know what I have to do. If I have to fall in love, then let it be with you. I don't know what I have to say. I don't know what I have to do. If I have to fall in love, then let it be with you.
it's more of a pop song, probably a much better radio song. I absolutely detested it. Now I can't remember what the original sounds like because they put that on the
Wow.
but that's the compromise you make, to
Right.
try and make things happen.
Yeah. So tell me what the plans are. What do you have any new music coming out?
I moved away from anything live or being involved in the music business because I was so pissed off for about 30 years. I just, at the end of after the Baby Let Me Love You, I just thought, this is stupid. I'm making records. I'm putting myself out there. I'm trying so hard and I can't get arrested. So I do it right. Rather than humiliate yourself, get on, make some money, do some stuff. And I'd written all my songs, so I was still connected in that sense. I live in central London. I live in Kensington, so I knew everyone that was around. I just had to bite my tongue, take it on the chin, be humiliated every time someone was doing really well, and that I knew, and every time someone said, "Well, why aren't you doing it anymore?" Because all of us 80s artists, if we weren't big enough to survive the 90s, we had a hard time. The world turned on us, and I wasn't big enough to weather it. I still had written Imagination, which was still played everywhere and was my calling card. Some people, so I knew, I knew what I'd done, but so I moved away, and my children didn't even know that I was a singer actually. And
What?
Until someone showed them a video on YouTube when they were about 7 and 8, and said, "That's your daddy," and that was only 10 years ago. So and then towards the end of the 2020, coming up to 2019 or something, someone said, "Do you want to do summer festivals in England?" And I was like, "Oh yeah." So I did those, and then I got the bug again. Of course, then COVID came and ruined everything.
Right.
For about 4 years, and then I was going on the Alarm tour in 2024, and bless him, Mike Peters got his cancer back and he passed away. A great guy, but so that delayed me, and so 2025 I've now done 2 tours, a small tour in the mainly East Coast, and the Lost Ages Live, which was fun.
Yeah, I think there's a new found appreciation for 80s and music. 80s music. I think
Yeah.
that a few generations,
Yeah.
are discovering it. Maybe it's because of films like Pretty in Pink and John Hughes, and but they're discovering it, and then you have Stranger Things, which is using all sorts of older music and
Yeah.
stuff like that. I think that I talked to a lot of 80s artists who are kind of having this little resurgence because their music has been discovered again.
You know what it is, Steve? And this is, I mean, I've been through this the last 2 years because now, obviously, the last time I toured, I had managers, tour managers, everything was easy. This time I'm out on my own with my band. And I've got agents, but I ain't going in at the top end. I've got to start it again. I mean, basically, the 40-year gap, I've gone back to, 1985.
Yeah,
I've had to start again. So, but what I'm seeing is it's not about the band names anymore. It's about the songs.
yeah,
So the young people and the younger audience all know the songs. They know more songs than we ever knew because of Spotify. So
yeah.
my kids listened, their Spotify playlists are everything. They know Peter Noon, they know,
Hmm.
the Animals, they know the Beatles. They've got no idea who anything's by. I mean, my daughter's got a picture of Ziggy Stardust on a wall. She doesn't even know what that is, but she's listening to Starman, but she
Yeah,
doesn't know David Bowie. And 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 unless you're fanatical, and I think it's very much in the States, and you're at college, or you're going to see live bands. So what I'm trying to say is, I think the way it should be marketed is to the songs now. I don't think
yeah,
it's no good saying 80s act. You've got to say this song, that
yeah.
song. Genres don't mean anything to
No,
young
it's all
audience.
blurred. It's all blurred.
What are you going to say? Oh, this is the so and so's. Huh? You know?
Hey, do you? But you still enjoy it, right? When you hit the stage,
I mean, look, I wouldn't be doing it at my age, going back on the road
right?
if I didn't enjoy it. I've just done 7,000 miles, 22 states in the back of a car.
Yeah,
I mean, you asked me if I enjoy it. I mean, okay, I enjoy being on stage,
yeah,
but I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't have a passionate desire more than anything you can ever imagine to get back on the stage.
yeah,
I mean, how many guys, I'm at retirement age for most people.
yeah,
So, you don't go back on the road. I'm going on the road like you do when you're in your early 20s or your,
yeah, yeah.
teens. So ask me if I enjoy it. Of course, I'm just about to go. We've just been confirmed for some dates in May in New York area. So I'm hoping that will become a tour, and I'm hoping to be out next summer in the States. I'm only really interested in touring the States.
Hmm.
I'm I've always liked American audiences.
Where is the best place for people to follow you so they know, if that's going to come together and what towns you're going to be in and they
I'm
can come
on
check
I'm
you out?
on Instagram every day, Belouis, but you've got to learn how to spell Belouis Some.
Yeah.
If you can spell Belouis Some, you will
Yeah.
find me on Instagram,
Yeah.
Facebook, TikTok, even though that's terrible for me. I do try. There's an art to that. I'm on Twitter. I'm on, you name it, I'm on it. But Instagram, I'm on every day, and Facebook.
Okay.
Please follow me. And I post every day, as I say.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, I'm going to keep an eye on that. Maybe you'll come close enough to me and I'll get to come
I'd
check out
love
a
to.
show.
I'd love to. They never let me near the Midwest in the 80s because the record companies, you know how they are. They said,
Hmm.
no, no, no
Yeah.
one's going to buy your records in the Midwest. And I'm not sure because on the Lost Ages where we've had, big audiences, I mean, a lot of people are coming from the Midwest.
Yeah.
No,
What we have to because they don't come.
no, because we're not allowed to. No
Yeah.
one will book
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
Ring my agent if you want me to come. I want to come. Go on to my Instagram, find my agent, and just or Facebook, and
Yeah.
yeah, I want to do
Yeah.
the Midwest.
Man, Neville, thank you so much for giving me some time. I've gone over what I promised you a little bit, so I apologize for that. But more,
No,
I enjoyed
I
talking to
love
you.
talking to people, so it's so nice, Steve. And
I
please keep in touch and let me know when if I get near where you can come and see. Just contact me and make sure I'll be on the guest list. But
Yeah,
I'd love to see you.
that would be great. You too, my friend. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Let's talk again soon.
Thank you.
All right, brother.
Bye bye.
For questions or comments, Email Steve at steveryan.songoftheday@gmail.com.